rebuilding. The catastrophic failure, a new start. Physically, mentally, our careers, our businesses. Step back, first step, next step. The driver in me just wants to get it done tomorrow. We'll do this, do that, let's move this, where are we at with this? You build some confidence, build some self-esteem, start to feel better about yourself. The Silverback Blueprint Podcast, a show for men over 40. We focus on getting stronger, staying motivated, building discipline, creating a community, and becoming truly happy. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 123 of the Silverback Blueprint Podcast. Today was kind of a little bit of a weird day. Usually I've got 3 or 4 topics all lined up, ready to go in my little handy dandy trusty podcast, little black book. And this week just got a little away from me. So Luke had to watch me scribble and make some shit up. So that happens sometimes. But we're ready to rock. We've got some coffees, our Happy Go coffee. Let's get some slurping in here. I get $5 every time I make that noise. I wish I did, because I'd be making it all the time. You know what word I wish I got $5 for all the time is You know, I say, is it what's the word I say a lot in the podcast? Or is it, you know, I can't. There's a word I say, I can't remember. Yeah, but it's one of those. It's one of those $5 words. It's not what we really think when we talk about a $5 word. Today, guys, I want to talk about how not every day is a rainbow. And you know, we're not going to have home runs every day. We're not going to have days run perfect. Now, we strive for that. We strive for our mindset. We strive to, you know, program the scripts in our head to make things happen. And if we do that, for the most part, you know, we're on the path to setting ourselves up for a great day. But some days just aren't. And even I have that day happen, and kind of that funk thing happens. And quite honestly, I'm having one of those days today. Kind of started yesterday. And, you know, for all of us, it's going to manifest itself differently. It's going to be triggered differently depending on, you know, what our triggers, I guess, are, what we're working on, what's important to us, that kind of thing. And I find as we get older, right, there's certain things like Rocky says, you know, there's still anger in the tank. There's still stuff in the tank. And I think some unresolved things sometimes happen that way. Or something triggers us, something happens, puts us in that state, and then those little fuckers just creep out and sneak out to get around our heads and stuff like that. So I'm actually having one of those days. And, you know, I feel that with what I'm doing with Hostile and, you know, the podcast, the Silverback Blueprint, is my job is to do what I can to motivate and inspire, you know, you guys, men and women over 40 for the gym, but on this podcast specifically, you know, guys over 40. And the thing is, and someone asked me this the other day, and it's actually a while ago, so it was the other day, but it was a long time ago. And they asked me, like, what happens when I'm not having a great day? You know, and for the most part, I think my days go pretty good. I work hard on that, but I do have days, like I said earlier, that just, you know, I have that funk. And today, you know, I'm kind of dealing with that. And, you know, for me, it was triggered actually last night by last night's bench session. Is one of the big things that triggered it for me. And my left shoulder has been bugging me. And, you know, I didn't hit my 600 last year that I wanted to, or this year in December. And so I want to hit it in October. So we've ramped up our training. And my shoulder's been bugging me a little bit. And, you know, I'm trying to train through it and trying to work through it. And it just got in the way of my workout last night. And it really pissed me off. And when I get angry, I get quiet. And for those of you, I mean, just listening to me, you can tell I always have a lot to say. I've got a lot of energy, but people around me are not used to that. And when it gets quiet, right, what happens is it's because I am upset about stuff, and I'm internalizing it, and I'm trying to figure these things, right? And that's always my thing. And when I notice I get in that mode, I like to remove myself from the situation. So we were probably about 2/3 through the workout last night, and I was in my 3rd set on something, and my shoulder was just really bugging me. And so I just called it. I said, I'm out. I walked out, and I went and sat in the front of the gym and just sort of try to calm myself and deal with what was bugging me and stuff. And of course, a lot of the guys I train with aren't used to seeing that. So they were quite concerned, which is cool. They love me. Thank you very much. But for some of them, they'd never seen me upset before. So that whole quiet thing threw him off a little bit. My computer's making these weird noises, so nothing like quality production on the Silverback Blueprint Podcast. So, I also have to look at how I deal with things when I'm at not my peak or my peak state. And I've got a couple areas for me that are like sore spots, and we all do. And to say we don't, I think is naive, and we're lying to ourselves. I think our goal is, once we know what some of our sore spots are, is that we work on it. We try to address the situation, what's causing it, how do we make it better, how do we just come to terms with it in our own mind and stuff. And I think that is part of taking that time and sitting back and try to understand why we're feeling the way we do sometimes when we're not feeling at our best. And the few things that bug me. So when one thing triggers me, the two things that tend to well up a lot that bother me, that, sort of rear their head in this moment of weakness, is when I feel that things aren't moving fast enough for what I'm trying to do in the business, with the brand, with my own personal development. I just feel that things are too slow, right? And I get even more frustrated. And I find at 50, I just get this sense that time is running out. And it is, but there's still lots of time at the same time. But that's one of the pressures that I fight. That's one of the things that, come to my mind when I'm not in that peak mental state, is this voice in my head that says, dude, you're 50. When are you going to make this happen? When are you going to make things happen? And it's crazy, because if I look back on what's been happening over the last few years, and even in my life, what I've been through and accomplished, I've done some really cool stuff, and I know I'm going to do some great stuff still to come, and things are happening, but it's that fucking state that once we get into that shit state, right, all that stuff falls away. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter the good things we have going on. We start just, circling around those one or two key points that bug us, and then we just make them bigger in our minds, and our emotions get behind it. And, that's kind of what I'm finding happening in the last day or so. I feel like things aren't moving fast enough. And I feel like, I want to be at a higher level. I always want to be at a better level. I want to be improving the business, the brand, myself, just our way of life for my family, and we're not living in a fucking paper shack, far from it, but there's things I want to get done. There's things I want to see happen. So that's what really starts, that momentum, that ball starts rolling, and it just gets tougher and tougher until I get to a point where I literally have to grab myself and shake myself loose from this, and then do a couple of things specifically to break from it. So for me, if I feel that that's happening and I get caught up in it, I have to do something to change a mindset. So the first thing I did this morning is, when I got up, I contacted my physiotherapy guy, and I said, look, when he trains at our gym, which is great, Matthew. And I said, look, my shoulder's bugging me. Can I come and see you for a couple of minutes? When are you going to be at the gym? So went in there, and, 10 minutes later, it's nothing that big a deal. A couple of things I got to work on overall. But it put my mind to rest. It put my mind at ease. But what I did was take action on something. And I think that's the super most powerful part that we have to do when we realize that something is bugging us, is take action. Now, not overreact in the moment. That's not what I'm talking about. So we don't want to sit there and make a quick decision based on an emotion. That's not what I'm talking about, right? So we need to sort of, mull it around a little bit and say, okay, this is bugging me. What's the one thing I can take action on quickly that can start, changing my mindset, but also move towards a solution? So to me, it was that quick email. What's going on? Can we hook up? Yes, let's do it. Got in there, and 10 minutes later, felt a lot better about things because I took action. Right now, I've got some work to do. That's the other important part. That's the other thing I think where we fall short is when we take a little bit of action and we get some stuff that we have to do, we need to work with that. We need to apply it. We need to make it happen, right? But it's in the taking action and addressing the situation that we start to change the mindset, that we turn around and we start putting a positive spin into something, right? And that's really what we have to do. We have to interrupt, we have to address, and we have to move forward to it. Now, am I all of a sudden wonderfully in a much better mood? No, I'm not. But it feels better already. And it's that little thing that you can build on. So what's the next thing I can work on? Well, there's a couple of things happening at the gym that I want to address. So I scheduled a meeting for this afternoon with a couple of staff, right? because it's some stuff that's been bugging me and there's some questions I have and I want things to be happening a certain way and I don't see them happening that way. So what I'm doing is I'm sitting down with some key staff and we're just going to have a discussion. What's going on? And, here's some questions I have. Why is this not happening? What am I missing? Maybe I'm not noticing something. Maybe I'm the bottleneck. Maybe there's stuff that they've asked me to do that I forgot about. That's the whole human factor as well, right? Is at the end of the day, this is the other thing that's super important. And to me, it's a double-edged sword for me at this point in my development and what I'm doing is that everything that happens with my life, with the brand, with the business, is my responsibility and my fault, whether it is directly or not. So if something's not happening staff-wise, that might be something on the staff's part, but ultimately, it's my responsibility. It's up to me to address it, to solve it. Hey, let's get this fixed. Is this fixable? Great. If not, then what's next that we have to do? Do we have to change a procedure? Do we have to create a procedure? Do we have to sit down and do a clear list of expectations with the staff that's responsible for an area that, things aren't getting done the way I want them to get done? Or the ultimate thing, or one of the big things, is that staff person the right person for that situation? And maybe it's not. And maybe you have to give that task to a different staff person, or maybe you have to change that staff person, right? So at the end of the day, it all comes back down to I'm the one responsible. Right. And like I said earlier, when there's a shortcoming, I believe it's important as an owner that I believe in, and I truly, personify the fact that that is my responsibility. That is my fault. And when something is working really well, I want to be that owner that also is the first to, thank the team that we have for creating those positive things as well. But ultimately, sink or swim, good or bad, achieve or don't achieve, it's on me, the individual, because this is my gig. So I know that, and I put that pressure on myself. So I think it's important to do that to keep me accountable and to keep moving things forward and make things develop. But it's also a double-edged sword where it also comes down sometimes, and that pressure on me gets to a point where it can put me in a negative state, right? Where, we're not growing fast enough in my mind, right? Or I want to see more of this happening in our business. Right? So I put that pressure on myself. So that pressure is good because it makes me want to do, create, and make things happen. But at the same time, I also have to learn how to handle that pressure so that it doesn't put me into a negative state. It doesn't make me feel unsuccessful. It doesn't make me feel like I'm failing, which isn't the case. But being human, right? And believe it or not, I's got feelings too, right? Is that I have to understand that I have to deal with that. And sometimes I have to take a deep breath and step away. Sometimes I have to sit down and just get through it and breathe through it and stuff, right? But it comes back to not every day is going to be a rainbow. Our job, though, is to do what we can to make those rainbows as often as possible and understand that not every day is going to be a rainbow, but we need to work on making that happen less and less. Making the negative days happen less and less. So that's the stuff, the devil's in the details, working on different things. Maybe having a couple of uncomfortable conversations with key people that have to happen rather than let it build up and let it get further and further, right? And it's about setting standards and maintaining higher standards for yourself, but for those around you and for your organization. Because it's in the standards that things happen. It's in the standards where we can make those decisions. This is the standard we set. If this situation doesn't meet the standard, we have to change it. Not the standard, the situation. This is the standard we set for ourselves. If we're not making the goals and we're not achieving what we want, then we need to change our behavior, not the standard. So my goal is to bench over 600. So one of the standards, the standard is 600. But one of the things I have to address is sit down with my physio, look at my shoulder, find out some things I have to do on it, and then do those things. And do them consistently. Not just on bench day when it reminds me my shoulder's bugging me, but every day. So when I get to bench day, it's a better bench day. It's the same for our personal life. It's the same for our business life, our careers, our families, whatever it is. We need to figure out what's bugging us. Then we need to determine, is it rational? Does it make sense? And then we need to act upon it then in accordance to, if it's not rational, then we have to deal with ourselves and we have to figure things out. We have to work with how we're thinking about stuff and the emotions. If it is rational and there is a standard that's not being met, then we have to have those discussions with the people involved to see what we can do to get things to that standard. And like I said before, even this podcast helps me tremendously because at the end of the day, how long we've been talking, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I feel better. I feel better because I'm verbalizing what I'm feeling and I'm putting it out there and I'm being honest, I'm being authentic, right? A little risky at first, but quite therapeutic, and it feels better. Just being able to say it, hear the words, because sometimes we have things trapped in our head. You ever do that, when you say something and you're like, oh, that sure sounds a lot different than it sounded in my head. Well, it's the same with this. Sometimes just being able to say stuff, being able to articulate it, put a sound to it, put a voice to it, right? Give it some life, it gives it some meaning, and then we can sit there and we can look at it and we can deal with it overall. But at the end of the day, right, I think my biggest challenge day to day, my biggest focus on is to really work on my mindset. Put myself in the best peak state as possible. And if I'm not, figure out what it is. Is it because I'm tired? Well, then deal with my tired. Sleep better, get to bed earlier, right? Change my workload a little bit, right? Am I angry? Well, what am I angry about, right? Is it rational, or is there something that's not making a standard that's important to me? Once I know that, then I deal with that accordingly. Am I lonely? Is it because I've been in my own head for a long time, for days, for weeks, or just what I'm doing and stuff? Maybe I just need to go out and have a conversation and hang out with someone, some people in your circle of 5. Sometimes it's a movie, a meal. Sometimes it's just sitting down together and just talking and listening to people that matter to you, because there's something to be said for that. Right? And at the end of the day, sometimes it's nutrition. Sometimes I'm just hungry. Right? I haven't been, am I eating right? Am I eating optimally for energy and recovery and fuel? In the last week, for me, I know the other thing that's a bit of a factor is I've been working on tightening up my diet. So I've really dropped my carb intake, increased my protein intake, right? So there's always a switch. So, you get these energy fluctuations and stuff, right? Because I'm working on getting leaner and bringing the body weight down overall as I work towards that 600-pound bench. And I know for the last 4 or 5 days, I've been feeling that a little bit in the mid-afternoon and a little bit in the evening, right? Where I kind of bonk a little bit. But that's normal when you switch over. And as you start to burn more fat, you'll have more energy from it, right? And my goal is not to let my state, if I'm in a bit of a negative state, one of the things that I will do to mitigate some of that is I will go for the Choco Fantastic Treat, right? Or the, quick drive-through McDonald's to get an ice cream cone. And I'll tell you, last night, after coming out of my bench session and being pissed on my way home, I fucking thought about that. And you know what? As a recovering alcoholic, and I haven't drank in almost 4 years, and I don't even think about it, but I literally found myself driving towards McDonald's. And I caught myself and I'm saying, don't fucking do it. Don't cave, right? And that's hard to do and to break that pattern. So you know what? When I came home and I didn't go, I kind of felt good about that because it would have been easy to justify it, right? I'm not in a good mood. I haven't had a great bench workout. My shoulder's bugging me, and all of a sudden I start, like the mindset starts to spiral. It would have been easy to justify that Dairy Queen or the McDonald's, right? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because that pattern isn't leading me towards the things that I want to do and achieve. So at the end of the day, that was a little victory. Little victory adds into another little victory, moves you forward. And even now, I bet you if you paid attention to my voice at the beginning of this podcast to how it is now, you can tell that I'm in a better mood. That's the power of the state of the mind, guys. It really, really is. When something's bugging you, determine what's bothering you, why it's bothering you, and then work on it. Take action on it and do positive things to keep you in that positive mindset. That's the hard work, guys. That's why I always say work hard, motherfuckers, because the physical work is rarely the issue. It's the mental work. But at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. Guys, that's all I have to say on that for now. Head on over to iTunes, or at the end of this episode, if you're listening to it on your iPhone device, leave us a 5-star review or a rating and a positive review if you can. That really helps us out a lot. Head on over to hostilegear.com. Use the code Silverback to receive 20% off. Cool note, we're looking at our downloads for the month of June, and we look like we're heading into our second biggest month, which is pretty exciting overall. So I want to thank you guys for listening and downloading and stuff. And, we have some milestones that we want to hit, and it's always nice to see progress and stuff. So I want to thank you guys for that, and I'll talk to you guys later.